Hello?
Hello. Welcome to the court of the Edijester. And I hope you're well. Here we go. Usual stuff. Buy me a coffee, blah. Warrior teacher, blah. Sick of saying it, but it's getting close now. Come on join. So I'm back to Dr. P. We've got Dr. P again here, who is proving to be a font of wisdom in this environment in which we find ourselves scrapping and battling the gender ideologues and the queer nutters, right? So Dr. P, psychologist and warrior teacher, got it right, psychologist and warrior teacher, has provided a very interesting series of tweets from January. So I'm going back a bit, but that's because I've been a bit busy. But I thought as soon as I've done one about Dr. P, we'll have a second one. And this is it. Dr. P here is talking about the impact of puberty blockers on brain maturity. So what's going on here? What sort of things should we be considering? And Dr. P has put together a series of tweets. Pull up a coffee, pull up a chair and get a coffee, because we'll go through this and I think it's very well worth listening to. Hello X, says Dr. P. Let's talk about the impact of puberty blockers on brain maturity. The brain doesn't fully mature until about 25 or 30. But what is the process of brain maturation? How is a 5-year-old's brain different from a 30-year-old's? What else are we stopping when we give children puberty blockers? Point 1. Description. The main difference between a 5 and 30-year-old's thinking is the presence of executive functions. Now, executive functions are higher level cognitive skills and are analogous to a conductor leading an orchestra who controls, organises and directs the musicians. So we're talking about higher level cognitive functioning here, which is the 5-year-olds don't have it. If you read some Piaget, 13, game on, they've got it, it starts, right? And that's when you begin to teach them in a different way, to get them to understand the world in a different way. They have scientific reasoning at that point. That's what I would call I call that the educational adult. They're 13, but they're an educational adult because they will begin then the process of learning the same way as you and I would learn. And of course, what also kicks in then is egos. Then they don't want to learn, which gives you your awkward teenagers. Number 2. The executive functions require the presence of metacognitions. Great word. This is the language of teaching to a certain degree, as well as the language of psychology. The two are very close, which is why we have to make sure we separate the two. Looking forward to discussing all this with Dr. P in the new cohort of warrior teachers. Namely, metacognition is thinking about thinking. I hate my boss is a cognition. I won't punch my boss because I will get arrested and lose my job is a metacognition, thinking about thinking. Get it? If you don't, rewind. It's not hard. Rewind. Or there are times. Number 3 from Dr. P. Executive functions are measured by functional testing by neuropsychs, neurological psychologists, or via neuropsychs, i.e. testing methods, or via observation and self-report by clinical psychs. The behaviour rating inventory of executive functions, also known as brief brackets, close brackets, in its various forms measures these executive functions from ages 2 to 90. Note, EFs are so vital they're measured from 2. So we start measuring from 2. The brief, which is the behaviour rating inventory of executive functions, identifies 9 executive functions. These are to understand why puberty blockers are so malign and dangerous to children, I will list and briefly describe these in full, as follows. Point 5 from Dr. P, we're moving on here now. Inhibit. That's the first one, inhibit. Controls impulses, appropriately stops one's own behaviour at the proper time. Inhibit. Shift. Move freely from one situation or aspect of a problem to another as needed. Solve problems flexibly. Next one. Emotional control. Modulate emotional responses appropriately. I'm very interested in that one, Dr. P, because I think many people have lost the ability to do that. They're emptying their emotional bowels all over the place. Stop it. Next one, point 6 here. Self-monitor. Keep track of the effect of one's own behaviour on others. attend to one's own behaviour in the social context. And then we have initiate, begin a task or activity, fluidly generate ideas. These are all measures that are used by the psychology profession to look at somebody's cognitive function and their ability. What's happening, what's going on, what are they able to do? Number 7, working memory. Hold information in mind for the purpose of completing a task. Stay with or stick to an activity. Section 7, working memory. No, I'm kidding. Right, Section 7. Section 8, plan, organise, anticipate future events, set goals, develop appropriate steps to carry out an associated action, carry out tasks in a systematic manner, understand main ideas. Can you see this developing as we move forward? 10.10. These particular executive functions in children are vitally important because without them, accessing education and forming and maintaining social relationships is difficult. When children have consistently poor executive functions, they are diagnosed as having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Point 11. Psychologists know the importance of helping children with poor EFs. We have developed many interventions to help such children. We provide external support and scaffolding until their EFs come online. This is the protective nature of the parent. So the EFs don't come online until later in childhood, 13 being about the key point if you read your Piaget. If you read your Rousseau, it's all nuts, but, bit of both, I think, bit of both. So they come online, for example, behaviour charts, to-do lists, timetables, etc. So these constraints that we put on children to ensure that the executive functions are able to develop properly. But what? This is the good bit. Here's the meat and potatoes. But what if, because of puberty blockers, these EFs never come online? What happens if cognitive development stops at the point children are given puberty blockers? How do young adults negotiate the world without a full set of internal regulatory controls? This is a brilliant question to ask, and I'm looking forward to discussing this with Dr. P at some point. Yes, I think you're right. I think this is what it's doing, but I also think it's happening without puberty blockers. And that, Dr. P, we shall leave until I think month 5 or 6. I think it's happening without. Point 13. How do young adults negotiate the world without a full set of internal regulatory controls? How do they negotiate the world? In the film Big, Tom Hanks' character, John Baskin, has a child's mind in an adult body. He essentially has minimal executive functions, but this is in the romanticization of poor executive functions. In reality, the consequences are dire. Poor educational attainment, because they can't focus long enough to learn. Dr. P, I think it's worse than that. I think when we get particularly puberty blockers, and then if it's happening as I think it is, outside of the puberty blockers alone, I think it is, it's not just that they can't focus long enough to learn, they can't focus long enough to love. And that's terribly sad. 14. And at that point, I'm going to leave it because I've put the links in the tweet for it. Go and read it all, because this requires reading. It's all very well and good me saying to you, oh, it's this, that and t'other, but it requires reading, and I suggest that you do go and read it. Dr. P has taken the time to put it on Twitter. It is only fair that you do. So that's the second of our Dr. P things. Dr. P Day expires at this point. I'm done with you, woman. But I'm so looking forward for us to joust and discuss many things in the Warrior Teacher Programme, along with everybody else, because the WhatsApp group's jumping right now. They're at it. They get it. We're off. We're going to go. Come and join us. I'm leaving. Ta-da!